Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's program, Culinary Diplomacy, Sierra Leone, featuring Edward Cargbo from his very own kitchen. This program is part of our new virtual citizen diplomacy series, International Engagement in a Time of Isolation, which we are aiming to bring you every Tuesday around this time. So my name is Mary Eintema. I serve as the president of World Boston, and I just wanted to take a minute to say that, as you may know, the mission of World Boston is to foster engagement in international affairs and global cooperation. Citizen diplomacy, or exchange with non-official international visitors, is a big part of that mission. So even though we're at home right now, maybe especially because we're at home, we strongly believe that while programs may change, the mission persists. So I hope you'll check out our other virtual programs as well. We have a couple coming up next week. On Tuesday, another citizen diplomacy program with participants in our Fulbright Cultural program. And then starting on Thursday, we are participating, we're starting a series of global trivia evenings, which should be great fun. And then the victors of those 4 weeks will proceed to the national competition. So now is the time to form a team or sign up. I hope you'll check out our programs and learn more about World Boston at worldboston.org. We need your participation and your support to keep this essential mission going. So just a couple of notes on housekeeping. You are currently muted. You should be on camera. We hope you are. Questions can be posed via the chat function, or raise your hand, and in order, Sarah will recognize you and unmute you, and keep your camera on. This is a fun, informal discussion. And do not forget to mute this. We've all been in the middle of Zooms with our cell phones going off. So I will hop off now and hand over the microphone, the computer, to my colleague, Sarah Sibley, our Vice President for Citizen Diplomacy. And also with us today is Josh Bruno, our manager for Citizen Diplomacy. Thanks a lot, and back to you, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. As Mary said, World Boston aims to create international exchange opportunities for our network during this time of isolation. World Boston typically hosts about 800 international leaders in our greater Boston community each year, designing and implementing professional exchanges for them. Understandably, these programs are on hold at the moment. The majority of our visitors come through the U.S. State Department sponsored program, the International Visitor Leadership Program, or IVLP for short, and it is actually celebrating its 80th anniversary this year. Almost a year ago, last June, World Boston hosted an IVLP group from all over the world, 20 visitors from 19 countries. All of the visitors focused on media, making up a group called the Edward R. Murrow Program for Journalists, Media Responsibility in an Age of Disinformation. Some of the programming team that we worked with from the DC-based agency, Mississippi Consortium for International Development, and the State Department's Education and Cultural Affairs Bureau, as well as their contracted visitor liaisons for the program, are joining us today. Welcome to you all, and thanks for coming together again. I now have the pleasure of introducing one of the participants of this IVLP group, Mr. Edward Cargbo. Edward leads the production department at BBC Media Action, Sierra Leone. In this role, he oversees and edits production and multimedia content for radio and social media platforms, designs radio shows, expands BBC Media Action's network through partnerships and collaborations, and supervises and mentors staff. During his professional exchange to the US, Edward was particularly interested in learning how US counterparts deal with disinformation and media literacy issues. While in Boston last June, Edward had academic appointments with the journalism departments at Emerson College and Northeastern University, as well as Harvard's Nieman Journalism Foundation. Edward also visited with the New England First Amendment Coalition, Dig Boston, and the Boston Globe. He even interacted with local high school students and visited Boston Latin School to connect with their library's digital literacy program and its students. Some of these local professionals are also joining us again today. Aside from professional meetings in Boston, Edward even made it to Fenway for a Sox game, but he did not have the opportunity to experience dinner diplomacy in our community. However, in appreciation of the long-lasting benefits of international exchange, Edward has offered to host you for a meal. It's great to see so many of our local dinner diplomats online here to enjoy sitting at the table. Today, Edward is offering a virtual culinary diplomacy event, our lunch, his dinner, from his kitchen in Addis Ababa. While from Sierra Leone, Edward is currently based in Ethiopia, living and working in its capital. So we all have the opportunity to learn more about what the current realities are like in both West and East Africa. As Edward takes it away in his kitchen for the next 45 minutes, I want to remind those of you who have recently joined the call that we are keeping participants' mics muted, but videos on to promote more social interaction during an informal, fun, cultural exchange event. Please do feel free to turn your videos on. As you have questions about the dish Edward is preparing, or about Sierra Leonean culture, or the current situation in Sierra Leone and in Ethiopia, we ask you to write it in the chat box, and I will read it for you. Or raise your hand by clicking the hand icon at the bottom of the participants box. I will then unmute you to ask your question. We will be asking Edward questions as he cooks, and my colleague Josh will be writing the steps of the recipe in the chat box for you. If you miss anything, don't worry. We'll be sharing a recording on YouTube of this session after the event concludes. In particular, we also ask that everyone please be patient with the transcontinental connection here on Zoom. Edward's Wi-Fi can be spotty, and he's warned us, so we might lose his connection for a few minutes. So please bear that in mind as we go along. All right, Edward, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with colleagues in Boston and some other people joining from elsewhere. So I'm cooking jollof rice. Many of you might have heard about the jollof rice. It's a rice-based dish that's very common in West Africa, especially along the coast. And I would assure you that it's a very, very delicious rice dish where you combine a lot of herbs and spices to get a dish that's packed with flavor and punch. I mean, as much as it is common around West Africa, it is also a dish that divides. I mean, it's a dish that also has its own politics. So you have countries around the sub-region, nations around the sub-region arguing about who's got the best jollof rice, where it's from. I mean, part of the reason for this is apart from the fact that it's common in the sub-region, it's also a dish that is easy to adapt and has evolved over time. So basically every country, you know, every 2 or 3 countries blocked together probably have their own version of the jollof rice. But what is it? It's like I said, it's a rice-based dish. I'm going to flip my camera. It can be very elaborate, especially if you're cooking it for feasts and parties. So what I've tried to do here is to keep it very simple, considering the amount of time that we have. So you essentially this is what you need. I shared the recipe. Like I said, it depends on who you talk to. If you talk to a Nigerian, they would have their version of it. You talk to a Ghanaian, they would have their version of it. And in Sierra Leone, even my version, I'm sure there are Sierra Leoneans that will tell you, oh, no, this is not the classic jollof rice. But there are a few things that sort of holds it together. And it is my view that if you've managed to bring all these ingredients and condiments together, you can safely call it jollof rice. And I usually see myself as a culinary rebel. I don't like to follow the rules. So I might have broken some rules here. But basically, this is the foundation. So what do you need? You need rice. This is where you start. So here I've put a cup of rice, and you can use a mug or jar, depending on how many people you want to serve. So this is what I use to measure it. So there's rice here, and I'm boiling some water. Like I said, I'm trying to sort of compress everything so that we can do it in about 30 minutes. So you've got tomatoes. You need tomatoes because it's very important for jollof rice. That's what gives it the orange color that you see when it eventually comes out. And it goes with a side dish. So that also depends on what you prefer. Most people back home would do a stew. In other parts of West Africa, people would do like fish or chicken, plantain, that's bananas. Yeah, so it goes with a side, and you can decide on what side dish you want to prepare to accompany your jollof rice. So most of what you see here will go into the rice in the same pot. I'm going to take the steps very soon. I just want to talk you through what you would need. So it's, like I said earlier, it's packed with a flavor. It's very punchy. So you would need the herbs. And what are we talking about? For my side dish, which is a stew, I would be doing some garlic, and I'll be doing some fresh tomatoes, which I grew myself. And I will be doing some spring onion, which I also grew myself. And into the rice, the carrots would go, and later on the cabbage would go, and a bit of herbs, which I would split between the jollof rice and the side dish. So what I have here is basically green basil, and I've also got some thyme. The fresh one is always better. I didn't manage to find it, so I went for the dry one. Yeah. So this is basically what you need, and I'm going to start a fire now. Yeah, like I said, I've been boiling the water, so it's like half boiled. Yeah, so for 1 cup, you basically need, and the other thing I need to mention is we are not so used to measuring things. So the recipe that I shared might not be very detailed or precise in terms of how much you need, because this is something that I struggle with. But with the rice here, it's a cup, and you would want to use the same cup to measure like 4 cups that go into the pot. Yeah. So this is boiling, and as soon as it starts simmering and almost boiling, so for that you would need like a high heat. That's when the rice goes in, and then you would see the tomato go in. So while we wait for a couple of minutes, because the heat is really high, if you have any questions or you want to say something, I would take them while we wait for the water to boil.
Thanks, Edward. That's a great introduction. Could you maybe just start off telling us what time of day do you usually eat jollof rice? And do you substitute different ingredients with the different seasons?
So Sierra Leoneans, we love rice a lot, and I think there are a few countries in West Africa, that love rice as much as Sierra Leoneans do, maybe Liberia and in the Mano River Union. Yeah, so people eat rice for breakfast, people eat rice for lunch, people eat rice for dinner. It depends on, some people have to train themselves when they grow up, to sort of reduce, the carbs and the amount of rice that they take in. But generally, you can cook this dish anytime, maybe not for breakfast because it's an elaborate dish, and it's also a special dish. So ideally, you would have it for lunch and early dinner.
And what might you drink with it?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I guess it depends on what you prefer. A lot of people would have it go with maybe juice. And if you have a good bottle of wine, I mean, if you have it, not many people can afford it back home, But if you have a good bottle of wine, I'm sure it will go very well with it. I will try that actually after cooking.
That sounds good.
So the water, our water is ready. It's boiling, as you can see. Our rice, which is, I suggested the basmati or jasmine rice. So I would go with the long grain basmati rice in there. So here we go. And you need a bit of olive oil or any kind of oil that you would prefer into the rice. We have this bad habit of eating a lot of oil, so yeah, just a little bit of olive oil in there. Give it a bit of stir while we keep the heat up. It's rice we're cooking. And here is the tomato. And this is going in as soon as it starts boiling again. Yeah, it actually is boiling. So we'll have our tomato go in. So this is what gives you that color that you see at the end of the oil. As you can see, it has changed already. So this would be your tomato puree. So the reason the jollof rice is one of the reasons it's very tasty is because you let the rice boil with all these herbs, spices, and all these ingredients. So it sort of soaks up in all this flavor. By the time it finishes cooking, it's got all the flavor in it. You cannot compare it with any plain rice. So I'm going to add a bit of salt. Like I said, we measure using our eyes. So a bit of salt in there. You have to be careful with the salt because you'll be having a side dish that's also most likely savory. A lot of people would do it with fruits and the salad and vegetable on the side. Give it a bit of stir. And allow it for another 3 to 4 minutes. So after this stage, I'll be putting in some herbs, the herbs that I chopped here. So this is mixed. I'll have some thyme, which goes in, and there's a secret ingredient that I would add at the end. A culinary mentor of mine actually taught me that. We'll see it at the end. I'll keep it secret. So here is the thyme. Here is the herbs. Like I said, this is green basil. Ignore the garlic. It would go into the side dish. And this is Scotch Bonnet. It's been in the fridge for a while. I would actually warn you against this. If you know it's very hot. So try not to chop it. So it will go in as a whole. And it will also just contribute to that flavor. And the jollof rice usually, as flexible as you can with the recipe. In West Africa, most of it is very spicy. So we like it hot. So that also depends on your level of tolerance for hot chili. Do we have any questions that I can take while we allow the rice to boil for another couple of minutes?
Yes, Edward, actually someone did ask about hot pepper and asked your recommendation for hot peppers. Could you repeat the name of the pepper that you're using?
So what I'm using today is Scotch Bonnet. I have bell pepper, which I'm not going to use in the rice. I would rather put that in the stew. Some people would actually put it in the rice, but then Scotch Bonnet is what I would go with because I like the food hot. So you can sort of determine the level that you would want it. So if it's red and medium, then you can change the chili. the variety that you use.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, so our rice is...
Oh, is it ready? Go ahead.
This is what you have here. Now, I'll have some herbs going. Yeah. I'll have some carrot going. And the only reason I'll give you for the carrots, you might not find this a lot back home in Sierra Leone, but I like to give the food a bit of color. So carrots are good for that, apart from the nutritional values. I have some cabbage that I had chopped earlier on. This would go in last because you don't want it overcooked. You realize that I left some herbs. This would go into the stew. So with these folks in, I'll just give it a bit of stir. So we do this a lot when we cook back home. If you talk to a Sierra Leonean, ask why they do this after stirring, they wouldn't tell you anything convincing. I think it's just a habit. So I'm going to cover it, give it a bit more time. And let's chat.
Okay, great. We do have a question from someone who lived in Ghana some years ago and said that they much enjoyed eating jollof and asked if you could perhaps tell us what the name means.
So the name actually, jollof, I think we can agree, despite the disagreements about who's got the best version of it, we can agree that it originated from Senegambia region. You're talking about Senegal and Gambia, from a dish called penachin. And yeah, so it has kept evolving. It's actually a lot different from the jollof that we have today. But because these are Wolof people, they call them Wolof people, and the language they speak is Wolof. As the dish continues to travel, across West Africa, its name became jollof, and it actually comes from the word Wolof, which is the Wolof people of Senegambia, what is now Senegal and Gambia, 2 countries.
Great, wow, thank you. It's fascinating to know all that history too. So
it's a dish that divides, but it's also a dish that unites. Sometimes I remember in 2014, when Chef Jamie Oliver came up with his own recipe and his version of jollof rice, the Ghanaians and the Nigerians put their rivalries aside and everyone was united. Like, this is not jollof rice. So, like I said, people can be very sensitive about it. I'm sure some of my countrymen, if they were here, would say, no, you have to do this, you have to do that. So this is the beauty of jollof rice. I mean, the flexibility that you have to play with it. I'm sure a lot of dishes have that. And that's why it's so beautiful dealing with it. I'll just add some salt here into the rice. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, let me flip the camera.
Okay. We have another question: if it's customary to eat jollof during any particular holidays in Sierra Leone.
Oh yes. I mean, that's your go-to dish. It's probably changing now. People are sort of adapting new taste, but this is actually a dish that a lot of families would cook during particular holidays, whether it's Christmas, Easter, it's New Year's Day. It's such on a birthday, for parties. So it's not an everyday dish, we should say.
Okay, great. And who taught you to make this particular version of the dish, Edward?
Oh, so I have been trying things out a lot, especially living and working abroad. And I've prepared it a couple of times. But when I had to do this for this event, I wasn't sure about what I am actually doing. Is this actually jollof rice, or it could it could pass for, I mean, something else. So I spoke to a few other Sierra Leoneans who are also into cooking, and then we discussed the recipe, and yeah, we decided this is actually what you would call a jollof rice, like have the basic ingredients and the foundation.
Awesome. We do have a very particular question wondering if tofu or fufu is popular in Sierra Leone.
Fufu is very popular among certain ethnic groups, and some people eat it on a particular day of the week. The Creoles, for example, would eat it on a Saturday. It's like it's the day to enjoy fufu. And but interestingly, it's also a dish. Ours is made of cassava, fermented cassava. It's also a dish you'll find in other West African countries. So here, our rice is cooking. Let me just flip the camera again. And at this point, we've gotten to a point where we just let it steam. And this is when you want your cabbage to go in, because you don't want to overcook it. You give it a bit of stir. And at this point, you should start turning down the heat. And my thyme would go in. So usually, if you're frying, you would want to fry your spices, onion, and other things before anything else to get that flavor out. But if you're actually boiling or steaming something, I would say it's better to let some of your herbs and spices go in last, because you just need the flavor to come out when you're steaming it, so that the rice, like what we're doing here, can absorb it. So I'll just put in the thyme. Like I said, you would do better with a fresh one. Sorry, I have to flip the camera like to be able to capture everything. So this is what I was talking about. We're almost there. Many Sierra Leoneans would tell you this is crazy, but I'm going to, this is mint. I'm going to just pluck a few leaves. You don't need a lot of it. It's difficult to explain this, but when you put this in, let's wash it. When you put this in towards the end, you will have this very mild, minty taste. Chop it into small pieces. It goes towards the end, and it's going with my Scotch bonnet.
So you put the Scotch bonnet in whole?
Yes, because it is very risky to chop it, because you don't know how it will turn out. It's very, very hot. So I would rather just put it in, because what I need from it is not just the heat. I also need the flavor. Like I said in the beginning with the jollof rice, one of the things that makes it special is because you cook the rice with all these flavors. So the rice gets to absorb it. So I would put my Scotch bonnet to get that very nice flavor from the Scotch bonnet. So yeah, rice is steaming. If you have a heavy pot, this is the point when you will just leave it to steam until it's ready. Unfortunately, this pot is not so heavy. There's a lot of steam coming out. So what I have to do is to get aluminum foil, because I don't have the right pot. You need a heavy pot to keep all that steam in.
Okay.
So I'll just do some foil and cover it so that I'll be able to capture all that steam and let the rice cook nicely and softly. With the rice, again, it depends. Some people will like it properly cooked, others would just want it like steamed. So it's up to you to sort of to determine how well cooked you would want the rice. So if you have any questions, so this will go in.
Yes, did you grow the herbs at home?
Oh yes, interesting question. Like I said, the tomatoes that I would use for my side, which is a stew, the spring onion you see here, I grew myself. So what I've been trying to do recently is I have some space outside, so I try to grow. There are some vegetables I buy. I just look at it and say, okay, let me try and see whether this will grow. So I have not actually bought any seeds for the purpose of growing. What I've just been doing is planting things that I eat. So yeah, I have some coriander outside, some spring onion outside, some carrots outside, and tomatoes.
That's great. Good for you.
And one of the reasons is not just because of COVID-19 boredom, it's also because you buy some of these things all the time from the store, from the supermarket, and in a few days' time, they're going bad. So why not just try your hand at planting something that you can just pluck and use when you want to? And so far, so good.
Great. Somebody has asked, why are you in Ethiopia in particular, and what are things like there in this time of COVID-19?
So I've actually moved here recently from the Sierra Leone office. My organization has an office in Ethiopia, new project to work on, which is why I'm here. I was supposed to be home by now on leave, but as we all know, everybody's stuck where they are. Yeah, and the situation here is actually, we've got over 270 cases, I think, confirmed. And yeah, this is mostly in the city and a few other regions. And there are restrictions. We don't have a total lockdown like in some other parts of the world. People can go out for work and people can go out to buy things. There are people who live hand to mouth. And you know how different social distancing is supposed to be in this part of the world. So making that decision to lock things down, I think is a very tough one. So the authorities have been battling with it, trying to deal with it, and there are restrictions, there are measures, there are things that have been closed, there are certain things that you cannot do, but those other essential stuff that keep life going can still be done.
So how has your particular day-to-day life changed in recent weeks?
Oh, a lot. I mean, like I've been, where I work, most people are working from home, and only those who have to come to the office will be there. And even that has to be on a rotational basis to reduce the footprint in the office. And then there are special arrangements for cars, like special cars, so that staff members don't have to like go into taxis and things of that sort. So for me, I live next to the office, like 5 minutes, so it's easy to walk. And because I don't need to go into a car or go into public transport, I just have to walk to the office. It's better for me to go. In those early stages when when the outbreak started here, like we were all just home, working from home, having meetings, but then our project has been adapted to respond to COVID-19. So we have to produce messaging, we have to run stuff on social media as well. So because of that, there are some staff members that have to go into the office from time to time, and I'm one of those staff members. Apart from that, there's nothing else I can do. There's nothing else to do. I don't go to restaurants anymore. You can't go to certain places. You go out to buy food only when you need to stock up. And yeah, so it's pretty much between work, office, and then maybe in the evening go for a walk over the weekend. Yeah, so our rice, let's just go back to our rice before it gets burnt. So here is our rice. I hope the lighting is good. Give it a bit of stir. Yeah, I wish you can smell it, guys. The entire house is smelling this wonderful jollof rice thanks to the flavors. So it's almost there. At this point, I will start making way for my side dish, which is a stew, like I said. So I'm going to light up the second burner.
Okay.
Yeah, and then move the rice to the small burner. Then have the frying pan. So here is our frying pan, ready for the stew. So it depends on what you want. I will do beef, which I had marinated and put in the fridge like an hour ago. That's the best thing to do. And if you want, you can do fish. If I were home, I'll probably do this with some seafood. I guess you can do this in Boston, you know, fish. I would do barracuda or maybe shrimps or any type of tasty fish. So this is marinated, as you can see. And I told you earlier that I have these guys here who will also be going in. And then there's my garlic. So there are no rules to the side dish, actually. So it depends on what type of side dish you want and how you want your stew. So some olive oil, very little olive oil. Once the pan heats up, as usual, the onion would go in first. I'll show you. So, onion is in. Let it just stir it a bit until it starts relaxing on the pan, loosening up. And then we go to step 2. Whilst we wait for that, I'm going to chop the tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, which I just harvested. I harvested them like a week ago. I thought I should just keep them for this event. So this is special from me.
Yeah, special
from me to all of you. This is special from me to all of you. Yeah, so chop the tomatoes. They'll be going. I'm not going to use a tomato puree. I'll use fresh tomatoes for my side dish. Like I said, this is something you can adapt. Depends on what type of side dish you would want and how to make it.
While you're chopping, Edward, we do have a question from Crystal from MCID in Washington, who had helped organize and manage your program while you were here in the US. And
Yeah.
she said that the dish you're making is a bit similar to jambalaya, a Creole dish that is often served in New Orleans. And while you didn't go to New Orleans, she wonders if you might have discovered any dishes in the US that you thought were maybe similar to some of your dishes.
Yeah, in Florida, the cooking is very similar. Well, because that's one of the places I visited on my program. So it's a lot more similar to the way we cook back home. We found a lot of rice there, which I had been missing for some time when I was in the US. So yeah, and I think that's it.
That was it. Well, what was your favorite meal in Boston?
Oh, in Boston, we went for lobsters, which
Very nice.
I mean, the group was very excited about lobsters and yeah, and seafood, and everybody was saying Boston is the place. So
Definitely.
a lot of rice and seafood. So here is our onion. While we've been talking, I've been chopping the herbs. So our garlic will go in.
Okay.
And give it a bit of stir. At this point, I'll bring in the meat. Like I said, this can also be vegetarian if that's how you want it. As you can hear, okay. I'm going to add some salt. I'm going to be careful with the salt because I had marinated the meat earlier. So it's got some salt.
What did you marinate the meat in earlier?
So I actually prepared this myself. It was a bit of ginger paste, a bit of chili, a bit of coriander,
Okay.
and some salt before it went into the fridge. And of course some olive oil. Yeah, so I'll allow that to fry a little bit. I like my tomatoes have cooked, so I'll delay that a little. Then I'll bring the bell pepper, which will go in here. Here, so bell pepper. Oops, the spring onion followed. Yeah. So reduce the heat, allow it to cook for a while. We have any questions?
Yes, we do. We have some questions about back home in Sierra Leone. First of all, someone is wondering what might be some of your other favorite Sierra Leonean dishes to cook.
Oh, so there's what every Sierra Leonean eats, I would say. I'm probably exaggerating, but not so far from the truth. It's cassava leaves. If you're familiar with cassava, the cassava plant, it's a tuber. And some countries in West Africa will be like, what, cassava leaves? But then, yeah, we actually cook cassava leaves. And it's cooked like fried, I would say, in palm oil. And lots of ingredients go in there. Lots of spices, chili, onion. And a lot of people like cooking using the seasoning cubes, the stock, which I'm trying to avoid now. I haven't used it in this dish. But if many Sierra Leoneans do this for you, you'll find that you definitely find the cube in there. So yeah, cassava leaves is one of those, like what you would call a national dish. Jollof rice is not so much of a national dish. We don't claim it as other countries in West Africa do, although we know that we make very good jollof rice. But cassava leaf is something that we definitely claim. And now I'm talking about it and thinking I'm missing it.
Well, someone else asked, are there olives in Sierra Leone or in West Africa in general?
Sorry?
Someone asked if there are olives in Sierra Leone or in West Africa in general.
Well, you can find it in the shops and supermarket, but
Okay.
we don't grow it.
Not grown locally. Someone actually asked, where is the olive oil from that you're using?
Sorry?
Someone asked, where is the olive oil from that you're cooking with?
Oh, this is from Spain.
From Spain. Okay. Well, the person who asked actually is Beatriz, who did the cooking session a couple weeks ago.
Ah, yes, okay. So I'll add my tomatoes now.
Okay, great.
Like I said, I want my tomatoes half cooked.
Mm-hmm.
I'll add them in, give it a bit of stir. So what this is going to do, apart from the flavors, is the juice from the tomatoes, which you need. I don't want to use water. I'm just going to fry this, stir fry it as my side for my jollof rice. By the way, our jollof rice is ready.
Oh, great. Ooh.
I'll show you. This is what we have.
Beautiful. You're getting a lot of clapping here.
And on the other end, our side, which is a stew, is getting ready. Like I said, all of this should be done in about 30 minutes. But typically, it would go longer than that because there are lots of things that, you know, Sierra Leoneans would want to add to their jollof rice. And if you're cooking this for so many people, like for a big event, it's definitely a lot more rice and more difficult to manage. So this is a spring onion that I harvested from my garden. I'm going to just chop it. I like that color. I like that green. I'll have some tomatoes also to provide some contrast to the meat. I'm not going to put this in early because I don't want it to be too overcooked.
Okay.
So I just chop it here and hold on, wait, give it another 5 or so minutes, and then we will be done.
Okay, sounds
If you
good.
have any questions?
We do have another question. Someone is wondering what countries have influenced Sierra Leonean cooking?
Sorry?
What countries have influenced Sierra Leonean cooking? Cuisine.
Oh, that's an interesting question. So a lot of the food, especially in the rural areas, you will find like local indigenous cuisine, which is either special or unique to Sierra Leone or unique to other countries in West Africa. But then when you come to the urban areas, that is where you will have a blend, you know, you will have a blend of, a lot of dishes that come from different parts of the world. So you would find our version of Spanish omelette, for example, for breakfast, which is nothing like what Beatrice showed us the other day, I would admit. But yeah, so people call this Spanish omelette. You can order it at a restaurant. And then there's the jollof rice, which comes from Senegambia all the way across West Africa. So in the urban areas, you will have what you probably refer to as a fusion. But in the rural areas, you'll find something that's actually traditional and indigenous to the people. And this also depends on what part of the country you're in.
Okay. Another specific question about cuisine. Are fufu and ugali the same dish?
Sorry?
Are fufu and ugali the same dish?
Oh, they're quite similar, but not the same. Like I said earlier, our fufu is made of fermented cassava. In other parts of West Africa, it's something else. It could be yam. It could be, in East Africa, you find ugali, which is, it has the same texture, slight differences in the consistency, and also what it's used to, what they use to make it. So they're quite similar. If you're West Africa, you go to the east, you know, other parts of Africa where they cook ugali or something similar, sadza maybe in Southern Africa, you will find that it's very similar to our fufu. But we do fermented cassava and the consistency is different.
Okay, very good. Someone has asked, are you enjoying Ethiopian food? It's very different, right?
Oh, very much, I am. I mean, they have the cuisine here the food here is very diverse and very tasty. One similarity is we love herbs and spices. They also love herbs and spices, and you can find herbs and spices everywhere in Addis. So yeah, that's something that I'm not struggling with at all, because I remember when I walked in other parts of East Africa, it was a challenge because they don't eat as much chili or other herbs and spices as we do. And that's not the case for Ethiopia. So I really love the food here. I'm exploring, I'm eating a lot, except now that there's COVID-19. But then before that, I used to go out and eat a lot and try in different types. And I have national colleagues with whom I used to have lunch. So every now and then we'll try something different.
Great. Somebody else would like to know, are any Sierra Leonean dishes made with goat?
Goat?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, with the jollof rice, the side dish, you can use goat.
Oh,
And there is one that's special, which is the pepper soup. It's a very hot and spicy soup that we have back home, and your preferred meat for that. Some people would go with fish, but or some would go with pork. But what's very common is the goat pepper soup, which a lot of people like. Very, very hot and spicy. If you're not used to it, you'd be weeping as you're eating. But then the thing is, people never stop. I don't know why.
I wanted to ask, how are your family and friends doing back home in Sierra Leone?
Oh, it's very, very challenging. I mean, with the trauma from Ebola, it's like deja vu now. By the way, our stew is almost ready.
Okay.
And my spring onion would go in. And this would be for just 1 minute. And we will be done. As I said earlier, rice is ready.
Okay.
So we are on course. Yeah, so people back home are trying to cope with the scare and the fact that you're having like so many cases recorded a week. We now have over 400 cases. Yeah, the death rate is also very high. If you look at the number of people in the country, actually 7 million. And because of the trauma of Ebola, a lot of people are really scared. So it's like deja vu, that feeling coming back. And how do we deal with this? And we've been talking about social distancing a lot, talking about working from home, but some of these things are just, I mean, almost impossible unless government has to use very draconian measures, which a lot of people would, I mean, say it's not okay if people have to come out to work on a daily basis to get food to eat, if people have to come out because they live on hand to mouth. And this is something that's common around the continent and in the global south generally. So that's a problem. My family, they're okay. Friends are okay. You get to talk a lot more now because some people are staying home. And I also spend some time working from home and there's very little to do. So as much as it is difficult, it also gives you a lot more time to connect with family. You're talking almost every day, and friends, maybe you'll be talking a lot more now than you used to. And I've actually found some friends that I've not spoken to in a while, and we're talking. If I should end on a positive note.
Yes, absolutely. So it's about ready?
So it's ready. So now I'm going to put it on a plate and I'll take it into the dining where there's better lighting.
Okay.
So we can have a close-up view of the rice.
We've also had somebody here say, thank you very much, and they're going to try cooking up some jollof rice soon.
Yeah. I'll just come with me. Sorry. Yes. So here we are.
Oh, beautiful. Yes, you can see all the colors.
This is our rice.
Well done.
Yeah.
You can smell it.
So this side, like I said, the stew, I mean, it's something that you can be very flexible about, depending on what you would want. It's like a normal side dish. So you would have a salad. Some in West Africa, some people would have some plantain, and you can also decide on whether you want it as a like vegan or you want fish, whatever it is that you want. So it's so very flexible. The base of it is the jollof rice, which we have to try and get right. You know, combining all those ingredients cannot be easy.
Somebody says, looks delicious. We are hungry.
Oh, I wish I wish I can share it. So I cooked, I think I cooked a lot of rice that's going to last me a few days.
Good. All that work.
Yeah.
Folks say, nice job, Edward. Thank you, and enjoy your meal.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I don't know how much time we have now for more questions and have a conversation, possibly. What is it?
We're about out of time, actually. Yes.
We're about out of time. I just checked my watch.
Yes, we want to respect everyone's time and try to wrap up at the hour mark. But thank you so much for joining us, Edward. This was fascinating and very, very heartwarming and cheerful, too, to get to be with you in your kitchen.
Thank you very much for letting me share my my version, I would say. I don't want people to attack me after this, saying, "Oh, you went out there and misrepresented us," because this is something that people can be very sensitive about. It's a very political dish, by the way. So this is my version of Sierra Leonean jollof rice. I wish I could share it with some of you physically, but then I'll just sit here and try to enjoy it myself. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to share this with others. And I also look forward to seeing what's coming up next.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that, as definitely wanted to bring that up. Thank you to all of you who tuned in. We appreciate your own call to citizen diplomacy during this time and hope you will continue to tune into our virtual webinar series. As you already know, we are running our virtual series typically weekly on Tuesdays. We did Friday this time, but we will have more culinary diplomacy opportunities coming up. These ones will be focused on India, Venezuela, and South Korea. So that should be good fun over the rest of this month and June. And next week, back on Tuesdays, we have another international exchange opportunity for you. We will engage 2 current Fulbright visiting scholars from Turkey and India who have stayed here in Massachusetts during the pandemic. They'll be discussing their experience being here, as well as their research focused on the legacies of 2 different New England trailblazers, poet Emily Dickinson and urban planner Frederick Law Olmsted. Registration is already open on our website. And on the other side of programming at World Boston, we will be starting online World Affairs Trivia Competition next Thursday, the 21st, for the following 4 weeks, every Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Each week's theme will be different, and next Thursday will be focused on Mexico. More information to come when registration opens on our website. So please stay tuned on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and sign up for our newsletters to stay informed of these opportunities. If you haven't already, you can do that on our website. So your friends at World Boston wish you all to remain in good health and in good spirits. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. Edward, thanks a lot. It was awesome.
Bye.
Thank you, Edward.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Stay cool.